Hello, my loves. Continue to update new stories on Reddit, and don't forget if you like it, please subscribe and like it. Now let's start new stories. Story entitled Grandma Hits Me with a Baby Stroller During a Graduation Ceremony. First things first, I'm an autistic 20-year-old. I'm pretty sensitive to loud sounds and large groups, which is exactly what a commencement ceremony is, unfortunately. I was there for my sister, though, and I don't regret it. I do wish I had brought headphones or something, though. The guests at the ceremony were made to sit on plastic bleachers in a large gym with barely any legroom or space for moving, especially once the benches filled up. I am also very particular about personal space, probably because of said autism. Before Fayre even sat down next to me, I was starting to have a hard time with the environment, so I went quiet and tried to focus on playing games on my phone. I was there with my parents and grandma, and I was sitting with an open seat next to me. Fayre walks over some seats to get to the spot next to me and calls her family on the phone to tell them where she was. I was already worried that more people were coming, but I had no negative vibes from her specifically. Her family showed up 5 to 10 minutes later, a group of like 6 people, including a really upset infant. I'm personally not a fan of children in general, but screaming ones take my anxiety and overstimulation to a whole new level. Thankfully for me and everyone around them, the baby quieted down pretty quickly and didn't cry for the rest of the ceremony. What a polite little baby. When the baby showed up, Fayre unfolded a whole baby stroller and rolled it right next to her in the decking/foot area of the bleachers. The stroller's handle was a few inches from my face, and I obviously noticed it, but didn't confront her about it. I don't like making any scenes even if the outcome could be positive. She put the baby in the stroller and started rolling it back and forth in the free space between me and her, which means the stroller's handle was literally centimeters from my face every few seconds. I still said nothing and just focused on my phone. It played out for a while like this as I tried to block it out. I texted complaints to my friends and sent a selfie of me and the stroller handle right by my face. I was starting to calm down as she moved the baby to other family members, but when the baby came back to her, she missed putting him in the stroller and it came rolling and smacked my whole body and my face. Fayre did apologize, but I silently pushed the stroller back as far as I could to her and made its fine hand motion, trying not to leave the whole ceremony in general. Despite this, she continued rocking the baby in the stroller, and it got even closer to me. Intervals of her pushing the stroller into my face and me inching the stroller back when the baby was elsewhere and she was distracted happened over the next hour. Right as the ceremony was ending, my own grandma on the other side of me noticed I was silent and basically crunching myself as far away from the stroller as I could. She confronted Fayre and kept saying to her, "You're getting too close," while pushing the stroller back to her. Fayre was not receptive to this advice and kept shaking her head no and arguing with my grandma. I tried to block it all out as I was between the two of them covering my ears and looking down, so I don't remember too much verbatim. Eventually, they stopped and we left immediately because I was close to a meltdown. Fayre and her family walked by us as we left, and she said absolutely nothing. Frankly, I'll be glad to never see her again. I do feel guilty for not asking her to stop myself and then having my grandma argue with her, but I was not in the headspace or had the mental capacity to engage in any conversation. Story: I feel defeated and stuck. I want my parents to move out. My parents have been irresponsible my whole life. I've been homeless and in many uncomfortable housing situations, including living with extended family, homeless shelters, cars, or squatted housing on and off throughout my childhood. During my senior year of high school, I lived in a motel. I turned 18 in late 2021 during the pandemic while my parents and 2 of my siblings lived in the motel. I was in my first semester of college and had to return to the motel due to financial struggle. During that time, my dad had told us that the weekly rent owed to the motel was paid through a rental assistance program. However, they would spend their money on gambling, weed, and alcohol and never buy food, causing us to lose a lot of weight. 2 of us were in college, and they would take the relief money we received and spend it too. Then they would criticize us for not having jobs, even though my mom didn't have a job either and one of my siblings had to quit theirs because my parents would take their money while they were sleeping, and it got to a point where they couldn't afford transportation to the job. On top of that, I had no birth certificate or social security card because they lost it when I was like 5 and never replaced it, so I couldn't get a job until I got them. It took months, but my siblings and I figured out how to receive my documents and got jobs to save up to move away from our parents because their irresponsible ways were keeping us trapped in the motel with them. It was really hard to save and keep money from our parents. At first, my dad would tell me how he made more money than me and that my money from my near minimum wage job meant nothing, letting me know constantly that on a bad week, he made twice as much as me. Then he and my mom would ask for money. They would get mad when we asked them why or said no. It was hard with them taking our money, but after 5 months of working, we had enough money to start looking for a place. We decided not to rush since we also wanted money to save for a car. We told our parents we were looking for a place, and they said that they would also look for themselves. While still touring houses, we were given an eviction notice, and it turned out my dad had been lying about paying rent. We had no clue because he did say the program was over and would ask us for money to cover it. My siblings and I decided to just move into any place we could. We got accepted for a 3-bedroom house for a good price in today's economy, and we had our move-in day set just before the eviction date. Just before we moved in, my dad asked if he and my mom could move in with us for just a year and said that he would even pay half of the rent, and we could split the other half 3 ways. We didn't think he'd actually do that, but we agreed because we felt bad and didn't want them to be homeless, and we figured we could use their car some more. I ended up getting a new car the same week we moved, and then my parents' car needed some work. So we ended up splitting the rent 4 ways, me, 2 siblings, and Dad. Then he crashed his car and never got it fixed because he had no insurance. After that, it continued to get worse. My mom would take my car, lie about where she's going, and not bring it back in time for us to go to work. My dad yells at me for asking for the money in weekly increments but never has it all at the end or beginning of the month. They refuse to put money in the grocery pile but always eat the groceries. They will take things from my room without asking. They never put gas in my car after using it. They argue constantly. I was taking classes at a local community college but had to stop because I had to work more hours to cover for all the things that they do and don't pay for. This is just a small list of all the things they do that affect me. My siblings and I want to stay in this house because the rent is so affordable, and its location is extremely convenient for its distance from shopping, recreation, and my job. I can work 25 hours a week and go to school while living comfortably. How do I get them to move out? Or do I just accept that my siblings and I will have to move and leave them homeless? Story: my parents gas-lit me out of $50,000 plus when I was 20. I work with my family business. Not like I joined my father's established business, but we created it with my brother and parents when I was 18. Now around 14 years ago we were working in the coal mines in Queensland, Australia, and we did small jobs for the mine like drive machinery off-site for sales or maintenance, etc., and I drove a machine off that was old but well cared for. It was only being sold because it was very old. I found out that the machine was going up for auction the next day and told my father about it, how good it was, and he had a friend bid on it for us. The plan was we would go 3 ways, one me, one my brother, and one my parents, and my brother and I would get to be part owners of a machine. We won the bid and I think I was told to pay $35,000 for my share, and I did. Funny enough, the mine site we were on had a contractor working there that needed this type of machine, and a week later the same machine was back in the same place working again. My brother and I were told we would get 1/3 of the rental for the machine, and we were not great with keeping track out finances, so we just went on with life assuming it was being taken care of by my parents. 3 months or so go by with the machine working nearly every day, earning I think around $100 an hour, and the guy we were renting it to tells us that he will need this machine for the foreseeable future, so he wants to buy it for more than we purchased it for. Done deal, Everyone is happy and the sale goes through, and we are told that it will take some time for my brother and I to see our share plus the profit from the rent, and time goes on. I asked about it 6 months later and my parents told us that we had been paid our share. I said I didn't think so, but they assured us we had. More time goes on, and when I ask again, then the money was used for tax, or they needed some for this or that. Fast forward 12 years later and my parents buy a very expensive house using the family business assets as collateral. Without talking to me, they start saying it's our house. I said it's not mine because I didn't put any money into it, but my brother did, around 80K I think, and my parents then said, "Oh, we put your share of that old machine sale in." Suddenly they now knew where the money was. Apparently they just decided to keep my money and my brother's money as a sort of cushion because we didn't need it. We didn't have any dependents and weren't married, I am now, so they needed it more. Suffice to say, I keep my money separate now, and I don't lend them anything. I know I should be more outraged, but families are complicated, and I'm pretty sure I got a bit or brainwashing or something to get over. They have done a lot of shitty things to us over the years, but it's only obvious when looking back. Ngo Phap Dam Bao by Viet Tieng An Qua Ban Kong Ko Loi. Don Van Ben Qua Ben Hoc Bet Dao Nat Ben Dui De Kim Tra Loing the Phap, Chin Tava Dao Ka. Sua Loi, 0, Don Lua Chan 0/2000 GPT 3.5 Turbo Teep, TUC Kai Tien. Story, entitled Grandma Hits Me with a Baby Stroller During a Graduation Ceremony. Once upon a time, I was a 20-year-old autistic person. I'm quite sensitive to loud sounds and crowds, which is exactly what a graduation ceremony is like. However, I was there for my sister, and I don't hold a grudge. Still, I wish I had brought headphones or something. Guests at the ceremony were seated on plastic bleachers in a large gymnasium with little legroom or space to move around, especially when the benches were tight. I'm also very, very picky about personal space, possibly because of the aforementioned autism. Before Ella sat down next to me, I started having difficulty with my surroundings, so I kept quiet and tried to concentrate on playing games on my phone. I was there with my parents and grandmother, and I sat with an empty chair next to me. Ella walked past some seats to the seat next to me and called her family to tell them where she was. I was worried that more people would come, but I didn't get any extreme feelings from her. Her family showed up 5 to 10 minutes later, a group of about 6 people, including a really upset newborn. Personally, I don't like children in general, but screaming children increase my anxiety and overstimulation to a whole new level. Fortunately for me and everyone around me, the baby quieted down pretty quickly and didn't cry for the rest of the ceremony. Really a polite kid. When she appeared, Ella had opened up an entire baby stroller and rolled it right next to her in the floor area of the bleachers. The handle of the stroller came a few inches from my face, and it was clear that I noticed it, but I didn't confront her about it. I don't like making a scene, even if the outcome might be positive. She put her baby in the stroller and started rolling it back and forth in the space between her and me. That means the stroller's handle was literally inches from my face every few seconds. I still said nothing and just focused on my phone. It went on like this for a while as I tried to block it out. I texted my friends to complain and sent selfies of myself with the stroller handle right in front of my face. I started to calm down as she passed the baby to other family members, but when the baby came back to her, she missed putting the baby in the stroller and it rolled out and hit my whole body and face. Ella apologized, but I quietly moved the stroller as far away as possible towards her and did the "it's okay" hand gesture, trying not to leave the whole ceremony in general. Even so, she continued to rock the baby in the stroller and it even came closer to me. She put the stroller in my face, and I moved the stroller further away when the baby was elsewhere and she was distracted. As soon as the ceremony ended, my grandmother on the other side noticed I was going quiet and basically trying to get myself as far away from the stroller as possible. She confronted Ella and kept telling her, "You're getting too close," while pushing the stroller back to her. Ella did not take this advice and kept shaking her head no and arguing with my grandmother. I tried to block it all out as I was between the two of them, covering my ears and looking down, so I don't remember much verbatim. Finally, they stopped, and we left immediately because I was close to a meltdown. Ella and her family walked past us as we left, and she didn't say anything. Honestly, I would be happy to never see her again. I felt guilty for not asking her to stop myself and then having my grandmother argue with her, but I was not in the right headspace or had the mental capacity to engage in any conversation. Ngufap dam bao by Viet Tieng on qua ban kong koloi. Don van ben qua ben hoc bet dao nat ben dui de kim tra loin the fap, chintava dao ka. Sua loi, 0, Don Lua Chan 0/2000 GPT 3.5 Turbo Teep, TUC Kai Tien. Story, advice on dealing with mother after 40 years. I feel like a 40-plus something adult that I should know how to handle this, but this has been ongoing for so long. Every time I feel like I know what to do, I change my mind again. Let me start by saying I was raised in a home where parents fought from morning to night, often putting us in the middle of their fights. It was mentally abusive. One small example, Mom would pretend to have heart attack and fall to floor when I was in grade school because of how my dad treated her, and when we would go to call 911 she would be fine. There are too many stories to tell. Her running away from my dad, and going away for the night, and me and my brother would be bawling our eyes out worried about divorce and her leaving us. I remember vividly going out with my friends to take my mind off of it and being told that she couldn't believe I could do that. I must have not cared or loved her. This continued on until college, when I would obsess over her health and making sure she was okay, religiously calling from college to make sure. I was diagnosed with OCD and severe anxiety as a young teen, had multiple episodes over the years that completely debilitated me. Somehow I am a functioning adult, own a business, went to law school and have children. When I graduated law school, I found out my mom had been cheating online on my father. I told her I would tell Dad if she didn't. She ended up leaving my dad and leaving the state to go live with this guy, married now for about 15 years. My dad, my brother, and I had no idea she was leaving. She said she was going on vacation and never came back. I was pregnant with my first at the time. I had kids at a young age because she was older and I wanted her to be around for them. I was left to clean out the house they owned, my child at home for my dad to sell, and pretty much get my dad through this, and my brother, who was 22 at the time and living at home. Wait, we are just getting started. At 34, I found out that my mother was not my biological mother and that I was carried by a surrogate. Ends up she couldn't have any more children, and my dad and her really wanted children. That's fine, but I did not know this until 6 years ago. I forgave again. When she was younger and around, back and forth to different states, she would play a role in mine and her grandkids' lives. She helped me through so many depressive episodes with round-the-clock care. She loved me, I know this, and we had an amazing relationship where we would talk daily for 15+ years, despite all the trauma. But now it's almost like all she cares about is herself. She will not come to see me or kids, 45 minutes away, demands we see her if we want to see her. Let's not forget I have 4 kids, all very busy. She is constantly making up stories, saying she's sick when we have plans that don't involve her house. Every time we talk or kids talk on phone, she says, "When you visiting, I want to see the kids." I know she cares, I'm just so angry and hurt. I get it, she's old, over 80, and her memory is going. I'm trying to be mindful of this, and I feel horrible when I get angry, but I think it's just accumulating of tons of trauma and anger. So, ends to say, I'm hurt, I'm frustrated, and don't know how to handle her moving forward. I want to be a different type of parent and I'm just fed up. Oh, and my dad, he's amazing. I thought he was the problem my whole childhood. I'm sure he played a part, but now I know the real problem. Ngufap dam bao by Viet Tieng on qua ban kong koloi. Don van ben qua ben hoc bet dao nat ben dui de kim tra loin the fap, chintava dao ka. Sua loi, 0, Don Lua Chan 0/2000 GPT 3.5 Turbo Teep, TUC Kai Tien. Story, scared for my future. Hi everyone, I have a beautiful loving boyfriend that I have known for 2 years and have been dating for 1 year now, and we've been through many things together, thick and thin. My parents do not know about him, but they've met at my graduation once. Ever since, they have been quite suspicious of him. My parents will not accept him for several reasons: 1, because he is a different religion, and 2, because they are simply just racist. My boyfriend is a black man while I am a brown girl. My boyfriend had expressed to me that he is seriously considering converting at a certain point once he is acquainted with my religion, so that I do not lose my family. His family is also from a different religion. I could feel my heart hurt when he said that he was considering this, because as much as I was grateful for how much he cared, I felt selfish. Even if he changes his religion, he can't change his skin color. I am sure I will have to pick a side, and if a man changes his religion for my family and he still isn't accepted because of his skin color, I cannot consider my family no longer. I have just graduated from undergrad and am already committed to do my master's at the same school. My boyfriend lives near there, he has his own place and a full-time job, and has always been open to me moving in with him. Unfortunately, I need my dad's help with costs if I wanted to pursue my master's. I have gotten hired for a part-time job and have gotten graduate assistantship interviews in the coming week. I can only support myself if these assistantships were to come through, otherwise even with my job I would need a lot of help from my dad. If I did not pursue my master's, I could either stay home and hate every second of it, or move in with my boyfriend and save up on a lot of money and continue my master's at a later time and support myself all on my own merit. I will surely be cut off from my family if I choose this route. I love my boyfriend to pieces. I have never thought I could be treated with so much respect and kindness before. I never thought I could be so beautiful in someone's eyes like that. My parents have always made me feel ugly inside and out. They've pushed me to have an eating disorder and well as body dysmorphia. They've constantly made me feel unsuccessful and have said that I would never be successful or happy. After meeting my BF and getting into therapy, I have stopped self-harming. I love him, I love everything about him. He and I lost a baby together. I would have completely lost myself if I didn't have him. I feel like I would die of heartbreak if I had to choose my family over him. He accepts every part of me. He accepts my entire soul and being. I have been a stranger living in my parents' home now that I am back for the summer break. They don't know a single thing about me, and they are very against me leaving. I have managed to stand my ground and be steadfast in pursuing my master's, because otherwise they will try to marry me off. I am losing my willpower and am filled with anxiety constantly. This past year I have gone close to insane thinking about what I can do once I graduate, and now I am thinking, what will I do in 2 years when I have completed my master's, or worse, what if I am stuck here and am unable to leave? I want to run away, but what kind of daughter does that to her family? But if I don't, all that I have planned for my life will go down the drain. I'm scared and lonely, and I don't want to bring this up constantly to my BFBC. I can see how much it hurts him as well. What can I do? Ngufap Dam Bao by Viet Tieng An Qua Ban Kong Koloi. Don Van Ban Qua Ben Hoke That Dao Nat Ben Dui De Kim Tra Loin the Fap, Chin Tava Dao Ka. Sua Loi, 0, Don Lua Chan 0/2000 GPT 3.5 Turbo Teep, TUC Kai Tien. Story: Father finally wants to have a relationship, 25 years later. My gay 25 female, father, 50 male, finally wants to have a relationship with me, and I am so uninterested. My father, who was absent for most of my life, is now wanting to have a relationship with me. He says he was absent because of depression and because I remind him of his failures. I don't know how to deal with the situation. My mom abruptly left my dad when I was a toddler because he was verbally, financially, and slowly becoming physically abusive. One day after he went to work, she packed us up and left him. Growing up, she never spoke badly about him and always encouraged us to talk and see each other. My first memory of my father is from when I was 5. He picked me up and we drove to his friend's house to go fishing. I only spoke Spanish at the time, and all his friends were very American. After a couple of hours, He told me to stay with them because he was going to run errands and be back in an hour. While he was gone, I was really scared and confused because I didn't know him, didn't know the people he left me with, and couldn't communicate with them. I tried asking the lady to let me call my mom, but she didn't understand me. When he finally picked me up, it was super late and all I had eaten was some corn pops with no milk. We went to his apartment and all he had was a mattress on the floor with a big window in front of it, no shades. I didn't sleep at all. I was hungry. That was the first time I ever saw a sunrise. After that, I was always scared of being alone with him. I would always bring a friend or cousin. I'd only see him maybe once a year on my birthday, and honestly don't remember much if anything about those times. He was mostly absent from my life. When I was 11 we moved to the same city as my aunt, father's sister, who my mom is very close to. I started learning about all the crazy issues my dad's side of the family had. My father came and visited me and his sister, and even thought of moving there too. But first, he tried talking to my mom and I guess gauging to see if she was still interested in him. She wasn't. I didn't know this ATM, this was when things became bad. My dad started causing problems with my aunt and his mother for being in contact with my mom. He started hating my mom a lot and it affected our relationship even more. He told my grandmother that she was not allowed to be around us. One day I went to the mall with my mom, grandmother, aunt and my cousins and we had a great time. At the end, my grandma gave me $1,000 cash and a letter. The letter said she could no longer be my grandma and she couldn't be in my life. I was 12. My heart was broken because I loved her. My aunt took my mom's side and stopped talking to my dad and grandma. He was absent after that. When I was 15, I was going through a rebellious phase with my mom. I grew up a lonely, only child latchkey kid. And I was extremely confused about all the issues with my dad. I wanted to learn for myself why my dad hated my mom. At this time I didn't know my dad had been abusive. I begged him to let me visit him and meet my little brothers, although I was scared. He took me on vacation to Canada with his wife, kids, and my grandmother. It was awkward but mostly okay, until he decided to speak ill of my entire mom's side of the family. He blamed my mom for his problems and called her a bitch, he just said horrible things. I realized he was a monster. When I got back I begged my mom to tell me the truth. I learned about the abuse she endured, his childhood and the abuse my aunt and grandma had endured, all the drama I didn't understand from over the years, everything. Basically, my grandfather was extremely abusive, and my dad's family was consistently getting into fights and had a love/hate relationship with one another. I was shocked to say the least. Still, I tried to be understanding and to have a relationship with my dad. But he was never interested. He'd tell me he would call and never did. He forgot my birthdays. Never congratulated me on anything. Was just totally absent. I tried visiting him again, but he left me all day at his business alone. He just didn't seem to care about me. Now, years later, he calls me out of the blue. He tells me, without apologizing, that the reason he's been absent from my life is because he has depression. That he finally has his medication in order and to please understand that he couldn't even bear to look at me my whole life. That I remind him of my mom and the day she left him. That I remind him of his failures. He calls and texts me often now. But still to this day he doesn't ask about me. He doesn't know anything about me, at all. Nothing. He talks about himself, his business, his vacations, his kids. I answered because I feel bad for him. But it hurts so much and it's hard for me to even think of him. It hurts that when he sees me, he sees his failures. He doesn't see me. I don't think he ever will and how to get over that. Ngufap dam bao by Viet Tieng an qua ban kong koloi. Don van ben qua ben hoc bat dao nat ben dui de kim traloing the fap, chintava dao ka. Sue loy, 0, Don Lua Chan 0/2000 GPT 3.5 Turbo Teep, TUC Kai Tien. Story: Should I stand up against my narcissistic dad? It was only this year that I realized that my father was actually extremely narcissistic and also emotionally insensitive. I always thought that him shouting at me, threatening to hurt me, and actually hurting me was what he described as disciplining me. But over the course of the past year, I've begun to see what a monster he really is. To give you an idea of how narcissistic he is, exactly an hour ago he was in the backyard and then started banging on the back door because it was locked and he needed to get inside. My house has 2 back doors. I'm pretty sure the other door is still unlocked. When he knocked on the door, I was just lying on the bed and my sister was taking a shower. I was very worried when I heard the door banging, and because I was lying in bed it took me a while to get dressed and then go to the door. When I got to the door and finally opened it, he told me to take my sister and I out immediately and pull out the weeds growing in the flower bed. He was also serious about this. He actually forced my sister out of the bathroom to do this. I have a good feeling that he was probably fully aware that the other door was probably unlocked. He just wanted to act like he had a reason to be angry with me and my sister, which I don't think the door was locked. Locked door is the possible reason why he was angry with us. I think this whole thing was done just so he could make us feel guilty for no reason at all. And I don't even understand why he did that. Is it because my sister and I don't go out to help him garden, if that's really what he does, even though he never announces that he's doing it and that he needs help? Or was it simply because he wanted to make my sister and I feel guilty for not meeting his needs right away? I will never know, and I don't want to know, because I'm tired of always trying to find my mistakes. In terms of emotional indifference, he doesn't notice or care about my feelings. I remember having a conversation about me feeling seriously depressed and he just turned it into a conversation about himself. And I had this conversation with him more than once, and each time the result was the same. One time he offered to take me to see a therapist, but it didn't seem sincere, so I didn't accept. Even though I feel like I should. In the not paying attention category, he could clearly see that I was angry, exhausted, or seriously depressed, but he still treated it the way he always did. An example of this is that he always forced me to participate in a wrestling sport called jiu-jitsu that I didn't want to participate in. Now I don't know which subject it was, but he either didn't care or didn't notice because I could be so visibly exhausted that I looked like a zombie and still be forced to go. I told him countless times that I didn't like jiu-jitsu and wanted to practice another sport, but every time he just responded with, "It's not up to you." I understand that these are just clouds on the iceberg of abuse, but it really hurts to be alive and know that my own father doesn't care about me and is only using me so his house can be clean. Will. And this doesn't even just apply to my father. Almost my entire family is like that except my aunt and cousin. I noticed that as my sister grew up, she began to behave more and more like my father, becoming obsessed with cleanliness and perfection. I tried many times to explain to her that our father didn't really care about us and was only using us so his house could be clean and tidy. She refused to accept it every time and just called me crazy or tried to escape. I could go on and on about all the terrible things my father did to me, but that would make this post 30 times longer. If my father can't love me, I think no one can. I have a good feeling that I will die alone, and that thought scares me because I know it could be true. Oh yeah, did I mention I'm 14 years old? Story: Do my parents even like me, bro? Okay, so my mom does this thing where she keeps baby talking and it goes on for like 6 years. She also holds her hands into fists and shakes them like a kid would. We were in the car yesterday and my dad was going the normal speed you go on a highway and she started acting. There is a 0% chance these were real emotions, like she was scared and plugged her ears and shut her eyes or stared or smth. She also just behaves oddly. Like whenever I tell her something she's doing is embarrassing me or annoying me, she always does it even more or for longer. This is by far her most confusing behavior. For example, the other day, I had the worst headache ever. I was at school the entire day for an honors program, and when we were in the car my dad stepped out to buy something. She started talking to herself, which I normally don't care about since she does that all the time. But when I asked her to stop because of my headache multiple times, she ignored me and kept doing it, like she always does, saying literally anything at that point. I also fear she simply just doesn't like me. Like I'd just be sitting on my phone and she'd complain to my dad about how I'm on my phone 24 hours a day, it's summer break, then he'd get pissed at me. Or I could take a small dish outside of the kitchen or use her computer for a minute and she'd tell my dad about it, resulting in the most disgusting, insufferable argument possible. About how I never listen and have zero respect for them because my room isn't clean. Okay, I'm a teenager. I don't want to stay at home every second of the day while everyone is out with their families or with friends. I keep nagging at my parents to go out, but they never want to leave the house and they don't let me go out 2 days in a row. Then it turns into a fight about how I just suck and don't listen when I haven't even done anything at all. And then my dad says I can't leave the house and I hear the same sentence I hear almost every single day, you don't need to have friends. Then all of this disappears whenever my dad decides he feels bad. And my mom suddenly loves me when we're at a restaurant, once in a blue moon, and she starts huddling up to me and baby talking to me. Then the second we go home and I attempt to have a casual conversation with her, she can't even stand me. My older brother is her favorite. He's rude to me most of the time, but it's probably just sibling fights. Whenever I answer back to him, my mom looks at me like I'm psychotic. Whenever I talk about something he does that just isn't normal, they both talk over me and my mom says don't listen to her and they ignore me and just have a whole conversation. Earlier today, I only asked my mom if she was going to teach my class soon. My mom complained loudly and my dad flipped out on me and just told me not to talk. I was at school since 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. for the honors program. I just came home. My parents know I would do anything to go out, even for a ride in the car, since they literally don't leave the house. They went out, and when I asked them where they were going, they said I couldn't come and left. When they came home, my dad took my phone away. Said I don't listen, I don't respect them, and that I can't use my phone or leave the house unless it's for school. They were probably pissed about the school thing because I complained about my parents not letting me move schools and they told me not to bring it up anymore and that it's not up to me. But I didn't even mention moving. Story, can never say no. Mom calls me names over not getting her way. I don't know what to do anymore. I've tried communicating these problems, it never goes well. She's my only parent. I don't know if this is the sub for this because I don't understand my own mother anymore, but here we are. Anytime I tell my mom no or go against what she believes, it becomes some kind of issue. We are close, but it can also be like fire and ice. What made me write this is what just happened. She stated that she was wondering if my friends from another state who are coming to visit could bring her cigarettes. I told her I'm not doing that, and she asked why. I said I don't want to. That wasn't good enough, so I said it's embarrassing. It turned into everything's about you, you only care about yourself, and everyone only cares about my name in a sarcastic tone. She called me a selfish little girl. I'm 24 for context, and I tried saying that she's being entitled and I don't have to ask them if I don't want to. I used to live where my friends are coming from. I know cigarettes are cheaper, but this cigarette issue has always been a thing even when I would travel home from there when I lived there. She also said I do nothing for anyone, which is not true. Another example that has happened recently was I showing her dresses through text because I like to get her opinion. I don't know why, because sometimes I just get my feelings hurt, maybe it's because she's my only parent. I don't know, anyways. I showed her one dress I knew I loved. She told me I'd have to wear a girdle with it or those skin tightening things. I said I didn't want to because it's gonna be suffocating for the event, and she said, all the models wear it, even the skinny ones. I still bought the dress, but now I don't even want to wear it. I guess my point is, I can never go against her without some type of remark. She doesn't see how she's wrong either when she makes these remarks. With the cigarettes, I tried to say how she's harassing me over this, and she's like, no, you just didn't let me finish. Why would I let you finish, saying my karma's gonna come because I told you no? I cut her off and said I wasn't gonna get any. If anything, she would, and she just laughed and said, "Oh, trust me, yours will come." I don't know what to do. This has been my life since I was a teenager. I'm supposed to be getting excited about my engagement party, but she quickly takes the excitement away in moments like this. Even before I was engaged, I always worried about the day I have to go wedding dress shopping with her. I don't want to go without her either, though, because she's my mom and I know it will be an issue. I am torn. I love her, I think, but I hate how I get treated. I envy the healthier relationships some daughters and mothers have. I wish I never lost my grandma because we were really close when I was young, and I know I wouldn't be treated this way as an adult. My grandma was like a second mom. I almost put her above my mom in my head. I wish my mom and I had a different relationship, but I know that'll never be. Sometimes I just get met with passiveness if she doesn't like what I said instead of mean words. Story: I may not be able to discipline your child, but I can redirect the energy. Yesterday was a rough day for me at the gym. Deadlifts are a wonderful exercise, make no mistake, but the last thing you want to do after completing a set of deadlifts is smile. Or move. So, rather than my usual plan of swim a few laps in the pool, I opted for floating around a little in the leisure pool at my gym. Move from one spot to another trying to steer clear of children doing what children do in the pool, things like screaming, throwing toys around, swimming around without looking where they're going. Effectively turning leisure swim time into a sneaking mission. I was rather successful at this, right up until a boy who appeared to be around 7 or 8 years old decided to spike a beach ball into the back of my head. Wasn't a huge one or very heavy, little damage on my end. I figure it might have been a mistake, so I reclaim the beach ball and give it to the boy who'd thrown it at me. Less than a minute later I get doinked again, and so I reclaim the ball and ask the kid nicely to stop throwing stuff at me. He nods and grins and I go back to what I was doing. 3 guesses what happened next. If you needed more than one to assume the boy spiked that ball on the back of my head for the 3rd time, see me after class. So, after strike 3 I grabbed the ball and asked the kid where Mom was. Mom, as it turns out, was reading a book on a lounge chair poolside. Please note this place has an excessive number of lifeguards. Not as negligent as it would be at a hotel pool, so I dragged the child and his ball up to Mom and explained that the kids beamed me with a beach ball 3 times and that's kinda not cool. Mom decided to do the head toss someone does where they're rolling their eyes behind huge sunglasses and said something to the effect of, "It's a beach ball. Boys will be boys." I toss the ball onto Mom's legs and get back into the pool, keeping an eye out for the kid. A few minutes later I heard muffled giggling behind me and then I felt the soothing sensation of a beach ball to the back of my head for the 4th time. I reclaim the ball, yet again, and intended on making eye contact with the kid and popping their ball right in front of them, but then the bad idea fairy rapped me sharply on the head with their magic wand and I had an evil grin, not unlike the grin the kid gave me after strike number 1. So I tell the kid to see mirror, I want to show you something. And then I submerge the ball under the water and pinch the air nozzle, which makes air bubbles shoot out. Happens to look exactly like someone was tooting underwater. He's not strong enough to submerge the air-filled ball, so I tell him to get on top of it and use his body weight to sink the ball. He managed to do that and his face lit up like it was Christmas morning and he'd gotten everything he'd asked for. He promptly swam off and found other people to annoy. I didn't get a ball thrown at me, and the kid's mom was pissed that she had to blow up the beach ball again. Was actually asking her son how it went flat so fast when it was a brand new beach ball and between big gasps of breath trying to fill the ball up. Kid just points at me on my way to the locker room. I wave and say, "Oh, boys will be boys." Story: left her kid alone in a bookstore for hours, thought it was totally normal. This here happened a while ago. I recently got reminded of it after meeting an old friend. Thought I'd share this story because I know after 13 years in retail/customer services that many people would think that what she did was okay. Back when I worked in a bookstore in a shopping mall, there was this little girl. Maybe 5 to 6 years old, just sitting quietly in a corner, looking at the pictures of a book. At that moment, we had just noticed her because she was kind of hidden, tucked in a corner, and was totally silent. We asked where her parents were. She said her mommy was in the shop next to ours and told her to wait in the bookstore. We asked if she knew how long it had been, and she pointed to the hands of clock, where they had been when her mom left. It had been nearly 3 hours. I still can't believe that kid stayed quiet for so long. And I'm still kicking myself for not noticing her sooner. We took her to the mall security and they started looking for the mom. That brainless woman was in another mall next to ours, 3 smaller shopping malls on the same street next to each other. The mall security were shocked. One of them was a dad and went to get the kid biscuits and an apple juice. He knew right away she was really hungry after 3 hours all alone waiting. I never forgot how happy she was munching on those chocolate chips cookies and sipping her juice box. They called the police and child protection services. Me and my colleague waited with the kid. We actually had brought the book with us for some reason, so she wouldn't be too scared. When the mom finally arrived, I swear, she did not understood at all why what she did was wrong and got pissed at us for going to security. She argued that her daughter was safe in our store and that she knew to not cause trouble. That got the police suspicious, because the kid was indeed very quiet and eerily well behaved. Looking back, it's kind of obvious that she was scared into being this quiet and calm child. The mother's justification was basically that since our store was selling books for kids and some toys, we were essentially babysitters and that we were the ones in the wrong for not wanting to do our job and watch the children. Needless to say, the cops were just totally done with her and took her to the police station. The kid went with child protection services. The mom was kicking and screaming, threatening to sue us for slander and defamation. Of course that never happened. But I hope that this little girl is now with better people, that she is now with people who love and cherish her. Story, moved for empty promises. So, I figured I'd share my family's story involving my wife's parents. I was in the army for a better part of a decade, meaning we moved often and were typically pretty far away from any family. My wife's parents, for all of those years, would constantly tell us how much they wished we would live closer and how they would help with our 3 girls and spend time together. I ended up getting out in 2018 and took the job around 12 hours from them. They were really upset, but I needed to provide for my family, so I took the best job I could find. They continued telling us the same things. If only you lived closer, we could do X, Y, and Z together, yada yada. 2020 and the world shutting down, and there was zero outside socializing. My wife and I decided to uproot our family to move closer to hers because we thought it was as good a time as any and we thought would be good for the kids. And wouldn't you know it, we see them less now than when we lived 12 hours away. The excuse now is that because we live 30 minutes from them, it is too long of a drive to visit each other regularly. The guilt trips never stop though. They still complain if we don't drop everything for something they want to do. We finally called them out on their BS. We are only here for their convenience. We are playthings to them that they can pull out whenever they are feeling bored and then put us away and ignore us for the rest of the time. They rarely spend time with their grandkids and only really want to see us on major holidays. We are now LC and plan to move as soon as possible. They act like we've somehow betrayed them and make statements like we don't want to live communally, like a cult BTW that was in response to us suggesting a once-a-week family dinner. So yeah, turns out these people who I previously had a lot of respect for are full of shit and extremely selfish. Really sucks though, because my family is absolute garbage, physical and mental abuse my entire childhood, so I was really happy to have married into a loving close family. Guess not. Story, update on my parents assume they will live with me when they are old. My 29F husband, 28M, and I are house hunting as we are expecting our 3rd baby in November and are hoping to move out of our trailer park by the end of the summer. We were interested in a house that was essentially my dream home. Victorian, built in 1900, but completely refurbished on the inside, but with all original wood floors and detailing. Gorgeous. A house like this would easily be $200,000 last year or the year before. But the housing market is dropping and we found it for approximate $140,000. We live in the Midwest. It has 4 to 5 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms. My parents, the other day, asked where they would stay when we come to live with you. This was never a discussion. They just always assumed they would live with me when they are older. I always said no. Well, we messaged the finance person about what the monthly payments would really be. On the app, it estimated $950 plus a month. We figured we could swing that, but needed to know for sure before putting an offer in. She came back with over $1,000. Not doable for us. We are going through a program and have a grant. So we aren't rich. Lower middle class at best. Thankfully, we have another house we had in mind. A craftsman style, built in 1920. With built-ins, wood floors, and a nice-sized fenced-in backyard. The basement even has a slightly finished room, perfect for hiding from storms and tornadoes. And it's $20,000 less than the dream house. It's just a little smaller, and bedrooms were pretty small. But it's something I was willing to deal with. We saw it before we saw the dream house. Well, when updating my parents on the house situation, my mom all but threw a fit. You don't have to go with the first house you see. Me, it wasn't. You can wait until something else comes up. Me, actually, no we can't. Some weird law was passes in our state in regards to realtors and our realtor wants us to find a house before it goes into full effect in July/August. Which just gives us more incentive to find a house pronto. So far no other houses have popped up in our area in our budget. You are about to have your 3rd kid. Where are you going to put him? Me, bunk beds are a thing. Are you going to sleep in the basement if you have more? Me, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. It's so tiny. Me, it's bigger than what pictures show. But yes, compared to the dream house, it's definitely smaller than that. But it's also more realistic. I knew what she was really worried about. Where will we stay? Asterisk, but she didn't say it. She started looking at other houses on the app and tried to bring them up to me. They were all houses we had already looked at or were too far away from my husband's work. She was really trying. My dad was pretty chill about the whole thing. She even brought up a house that needed serious work. We want to live in the house, Mom. And we don't want a money pit. She practically growled at me. The call soon ended after that. ETA, for all of those explaining the realtor law thing to me in the comments, thank you. My husband did explain it to me as well, but I do better with reading information than hearing it. Also, I mentioned this in a few comments, but it might be buried soon. The craftsman is not looking doable for us either unless it goes down in price by like $10,000. We only qualified 4% 3 down in our program, so we would still be paying more than we can/want to each month. We are looking at other houses, some a little further away from my husband's job. It seems all the more affordable houses that are in decent shape are almost an hour commute from my husband's work. Which is something we are okay with. We aren't overly happy about it but are willing to roll with it because it's not the worst thing in the world. Story: my mother used a private conversation as ammunition to ridicule me, then blamed everyone else for it when she got called out for starting the gossip. I'm gonna give some fake names off the bat for easy reading. 24 female, Abby, 60 female, Abby's mom Lori, 60 female, and mom, 24 female, me. For added context, I still live at home, but pay all of my own bills plus rent. My parents strongly encouraged me to stay home and not waste money on higher rent until I bank more money. Rent is crazy in my area, which I agreed to. Abby moved out of Lori's house a couple months ago. Both of us, Abby and I, also have ADHD to some degree that went undiagnosed into our 20s. We have the situation where Mom and Lori are best friends, and when Abby and I met as little kids we were instantly best friends too. For the most part it's fine, but we definitely use our own friendships to vent about our mom's daughters as one might expect. However, Those talks usually do not leave our own conversations and get spread around. That was until recently. One day while I was packing a bag to stay over Abby's place, my mom walked straight into my bedroom without knocking or a hello and said the following: "Gosh, your room is a total pigsty all the time. I frankly don't know how you live like this." Lori says that Abby used to be a mess too, but cleaned up once she moved out. Lori said it was strange, but I think it makes total sense. You two just have no respect for your mothers and their homes. This obviously started an argument where I explained that Abby and I always struggled with organization but have worked really hard to do better, and accusing us of doing it out of spite is uncalled for. Plus, renting my bedroom means it's my bedroom. I also pointed out I was actively packing to go see Abby, so the timing for a fight was awful, and then my mom said, "Oh well, if you had told me that I wouldn't be chatting," and then walked away quickly. I vented to Abby about it when I arrived, and warned her that my mom is twisting Lori's words about Abby to victimize herself and berate me. Abby told Lori, and Lori decided to confront Mom on how she handled that information and used it on me. So now, my mom randomly pulled me aside and this is what she said: "Hey, so just in theory, if I maybe slip up sometimes and might tell you something I spoke with Lori about, you really should keep that to yourself. You know Abby is a gossip and going to ruin our dynamic with the drama." My jaw was on the floor. My response was, "That's what you got out of that situation. If you hadn't used Lori to spin your own narrative against me, I never would have had a reason to say anything. You started this, and Lori was clearly confronting you on it." She was then silent and quickly changed the subject. Christ. Story: sleepover party that felt like it would never end. This time this isn't the same family from the pool party story. This is a completely different family. Also apologize for probably another long post. So this was back in 2018. I was in the 5th grade and got invited to my best friend's birthday party. We will call her Vicky. Me and Vicky are no longer friends currently and probably won't be ever again. Some context is that we had a friend group falling outing where I called out Vicky's homophobia and racism. She said slurs that were very offensive to both the LGBTQ+ community and said slurs that are offensive to Black people, Asian people, Mexican people, and more. I was very excited to go to Vicky's house, and she and I were very excited. I had been friends with Vicky at that point for about 4 to 5 years. So this party was a massive milestone for us. I got to the party to hearing karaoke playing from my friend group's favorite movie. Vicky and another girl were singing the intro to Disney Descendants. I was told by Vicky's mom to drop my bag at the front door. I grabbed my iPad and asked for the Wi-Fi password so I can keep in contact with my family about how things were going. At that time I was very connected with my parents and family, and when I'm not home I would text and call my parents goodnight and updates randomly. Well, Vicky's mom, aka New EM, said no, and when I explained to EM why I needed the password, she harshly told me no again. She said if I want to leave I need permission from her to use the house phone to contact my parents. I at the time didn't know my parents' number and I needed to have EM next to me during that call. Well, 30 to 40 minutes of singing we got bored and we had to wait for food to arrive still. At that time I had been there for at the longest 40 minutes while the others had been there for 2 whole hours. I still don't know what had been going on for those 2 hours, but I'm glad my mom's aunt, whom I'm no contact with, was pulling and braiding my hair, cornrows BTW. Finally Vicky's dad came home with the food and drinks. Before this EM told us we are not to have snacks or drinks beforehand. Most of the girls were starving and ran towards the pizza. Most of the girls didn't eat before showing up and they had been there since around 3 p.m, some showed up around 2 p.m. I only made it around 5 p.m. So about 6 p.m. we had cleared out as a group 2 or 3 boxes of pizza. EM was mad that we ate so much and stormed out of the house. Vicky said she's probably going to go pick up her brothers from basketball. Also, before anyone say we ate too much or how insensitive of us to eat all the food that had just been provided for us, there was 5 pizzas there. Also, there was a total of 8 or 10 girls there. Currently this was just about 7 years ago, so I don't fully remember, but there was a lot of girls at this party. I grabbed my iPad to play some Wi-Fi-less games with the other girls while we waited for the next part of the party. I asked Vicky if she knew the Wi-Fi password, but she actually didn't know it. Vicky's mom claims that her children are terrible, so they aren't allowed to know the Wi-Fi password and have a 3-hour time limit on their shared iPad. There was baby child locks on the iPad. They can't download and delete games on the iPad. To sum it up, when Vicky's mom entered the house without her sons, so where had she been? I'm not sure. Vicky begged her mom to download at the time a new game called Gotcha Studio. Yes, I had the app at the time, and no, I no longer play/use the app because of the community. It was strange because when Vicky asked her mom for the app, her mom spoke to her in such a sweet tone. Then afterwards was almost yelling at everyone else in a harsh way. After Vicky got the app and played for a total of 5 minutes, her mom requested the iPad back. She gave it back because she trusts her mom. She did not get the iPad back until almost the end of the sleepover party. After the iPad was taken from Vicky, she instructed us to go to her kitchen and start making her birthday cake. We had to make a giant peppermint brownie cake for Vicky. Even though she was told to go sit down on the couch and stare at the blank TV, she joined us. Vicky's mom told her to go relax even though she passed her certain amount of hours of screen time. This meant she couldn't watch the TV for the rest of the day. Vicky joined us out of boredom. Once her dad came inside from chasing her chickens around for a few eggs, he asked where her brothers were. After finding out her mom had not gotten them, he left to pick them up. After Vicky's dad came back to see a finished brownie that just needs to be baked, he said, "Oh, I'm glad you used those old candy canes. They've been sitting out since 2016. I was grossed out, but they seemed fine, so I don't know if he was joking or not. Something that kept happening was that I would get a soda, take a few sips, and somebody would move it. I found out the next day it was both of Vicky's brothers. I had to keep getting multiple sodas because they would move it next to theirs and the other girls' sodas. In total, I opened about 4 or 5 different sodas, not one of them finished because the boys were drinking from the random sodas. I found that very unsanitary, so I just kept getting a new one. I eventually stopped getting new ones because I was getting tired of opening new sodas just for them to get moved. We found out that there was no more icing, so we just had plain brownies, which I was fine with. When we cut the brownie, I was handed the smallest piece from Vicky's mom. Everybody got a small piece, but I got the smallest due to my misbehavior. What was it that I did wrong, you may ask? I drank 4 to 5 sodas. Due to this, I didn't need any more sugar. At this point, most of the girls left before we could open gifts. I suspect some of them called for their parents to pick them up. I know 1 or 2 girls had their own phone with them. I didn't know my parents' phone number at the time, so I couldn't call no matter how much I wanted to leave. So now at this point, there's only about 3 or 4 girls at the party. It's currently 7:05 p.m. and we head outside to go play on Vicky's playground and get ready to hit the piñata. We were excited and Vicky asks her mom to be outside and record her and her friends hitting the piñata. Agrees to be outside and record, but says she's going to take a quick shower first and then she'll be outside. Well, we waited till almost 9 at night outside for her to return. Finally comes back when the sky is dark outside. It wasn't too dark, but just dark enough for you to question why you're outside playing still instead of inside getting ready for dinner then bed. We hit the piñata and grab candy. Well, didn't like that we all got huge bagfuls and her son's bags aren't as big. Em's sons had big bags full of candy, just not as much as some of us had. So made us give 2 big handfuls of our candies to her boys. The boys were both in 3rd grade and 2nd grade. They both were happy with what they got and didn't care if they got more or not. We were unhappy but gave them our candies. We went inside to open presents, but insisted we open only 3 presents, then we go see what her grandparents got her. Vicky opened the presents of the remaining girls' items. Then the 2 girls left because their parents came to pick them up. That left me and Andrea. She's not too important to the story, but it would be nice to give her a name. So now was the time for the final gift for the night. Vicky, Andrea and Vicky's dad and brother got into the van with me and we drove 15 to 20 minutes out of town. I asked before leaving if they could call my parents and tell them where I'm going, but I was told no. Nobody in the car other than Vicky's dad knew where we were going. Something that happened that made me super uncomfortable was that in the car I was given a flashlight because it would be dark by the time we got where we're going. I turned on the flashlight by accident. Thankfully it wasn't pointed at any mirrors. When it went off, it hit the ceiling of the van. It was obvious what happened, and Vicky's dad told me not to do it again, which is a reasonable request. He then said in a joking voice, "Don't do it again because you'll blind the driver and will crash," then proceeded to swerve the car, almost crashing. He did this repeatedly for a solid 5 minutes. It was scary mainly because he drove on the wrong side of the road and almost crashed into oncoming cars and parked cars. He stopped thankfully, and we all moved on like it didn't happen. I was mainly shaken up the most. As we drove, I realized nobody knew where we were going. It wasn't until we got close to the location did Vicky and her brothers knew where we were going. I was getting nervous though. I was in the middle of nowhere pretty much. We were outside some fruit farm, which I won't name which fruit because it'll give away too much information. We pull up and it was dark outside. I was actually scared, and so was Andrea, which I later on found out that Andrea had strict parents and she was told not to leave the house no matter what. She left the house because it would be awkward if she stayed back and would be left basically by herself. Decided that she wasn't going to go because it would be boring. Em's children begged her to join us, and I was glad she decided to stay home and do work. Off topic, Vicky had a puppy which she later on told me they locked it inside a shelf closet, a tiny closet with shelves almost touching the ground. The closet could support a thin small child if you tried to put somebody in there. Keep this in mind that the dog has been in that closet the whole time and was locked in there for almost a full 24 hours. Back to the main story, we stayed out there for about 30 minutes just to find nothing was out there but an old treehouse which was about to collapse. The gift was that Vicky's grandparents paid to get a new treehouse for her, and she gets to pick out where the new treehouse will go. She picked the middle of the fruit farm and asked if we could drive farther out. Thankfully her dad said no. I also later on found out that we were right in the area where commonly tarantulas, rattlesnakes and other possible dangerous animals tend to lurk. We finally get back and watched The Greatest Showman, which was Vicky's favorite movie at the time. We were all given small bowls of popcorn, and when I tried to get more like Andrea did, I was told no harshly and to save some for everyone else. Everybody else had gotten about 2 or more bowls of popcorn. I was so ready to go home at that point, but had no way to tell my parents to pick me up. The movie ended, and we were told to go to bed. When I ran downstairs to bring my bag of clothes upstairs and see if I could get Wi-Fi or guess the Wi-Fi password to tell my parents to pick me up, Em was at the top of the stairs waiting for me. She told me to hand over my iPad and I could get it back in the morning. So I handed it over. I was stuck there for the rest of the night. I was too scared to ask Em if I could call my parents to leave or stand up against her. So I went to Vicky's room to sleep. By morning everyone was very distant towards me because I stayed the night. I got up first, made my bed and got dressed because I just wanted to leave. Me, Andrea and Vicky headed downstairs once we heard Em wake up. The rule was don't leave your room for breakfast or to be downstairs in the morning until Em is downstairs. Andrea stayed the night before in the past and even warned me don't leave the room to use the bathroom unless I really have to, otherwise I will get in trouble. We head downstairs, open the rest of the presents, and then we had breakfast. We all got 1 pancake, only Vicky's brothers got 2 pancakes, but they were so small it was basically a total of 1. At this point it was almost 12, so I thought it would be fine to have a soda because it was close to the afternoon. When Andrea saw that I got a soda, she also got one. Once we opened the soda, Em started yelling at us. She wasn't in the same room, but her yell was the kind that parents do when you break a window. She yelled, "Who the hell opened a soda?" She stomped in and snatched our sodas. Andrea looked genuinely scared and said, "You didn't ask if we could have soda?" I didn't think it was a problem before. We got scolded by Em and she told us both we can have water and milk, we need permission for soda and juice. I can understand soda needs a request, but apple juice and orange juice needs permission? I thought it was ridiculous, but I didn't argue because I was terrified. We got yelled at, and she left to sit in the dining room. The dining room is next to the kitchen, but there's a wall that makes it hard for us to see her. She spent most of the party in the dining room. My dad called to tell he's on his way, thankfully. Was talking to Andrea about how Andrea's mom made a joke about how she could live there since she's over so often. I wanted her to think I had an amazing time, so I tried to chime in saying I had a great time and I would love to stay here sometime in the future again. Side-eyed me and said I wasn't talking to you, then rolled her eyes at me. I wanted to leave at that moment. Thankfully my dad showed up a few minutes later, and before I left tried to keep my iPad. I asked for it back while my dad was there, and went and got it but handed the iPad to my dad and not me. She then said to my dad, "Your daughter drank 5 sodas and ate 3 slices of pizza." My dad wanted to leave because he was getting a weird vibe from Me and my dad hurried out. He handed back my iPad that scolded me for drinking so much soda. It was the worst birthday party I've ever been to. I'm so glad that I grew a backbone finally at the age of 17, therefore this would never had happened again, let alone I have a phone that is wireless reception so I can get out of these crazy situations. Overall, I'm glad I'm no longer in contact with that crazy family. Story: Mom will wait until I'm in the house for me to do housework. I, 17, female, live at home with my mom. She has a rule to be up at a certain time in the morning. I've woken up and realized I started my period. I quickly went to the bathroom and gone in the shower. I've come out and made Missed a hot drink and went back into bed as I was in pain. Mom now wakes up and calls my name at around 12:15 p.m. from the kitchen saying, "Have you been in the kitchen?" I said yeah, and she replied with, "And you can't smell the bin and didn't take it out." She then started cussing, saying, "Yeah, of course you didn't smell the bin, I must do it." I didn't hear anything else she said. I just went back to revising on my phone because I have an exam tomorrow. A little backstory: the day before this I wasn't at home all day, I had went out. She was home and had company. I don't know what she was doing, but when I got back I jumped straight in the shower. Later that evening at around 10 to 11 I saw the bin with the lid off and the bin handles were drawn together like someone was going to take it out but didn't. Now yes, I could have taken it down after my shower, but I really didn't feel like I had to. I wasn't in the house all day, I had just got home, I was hungry, etc. I just wanted to chill. Now my problem is I feel like she waits on me all the time to do the chores or whatever, but all the day before she could have took the bin out. Why wait until I get home or until I'm home to moan about the bin? No, I didn't tell her I started my period and just wanted to lie down, as I didn't feel like shouting that back out to her cause she's in the kitchen, plus my window was open. No one needs to hear that. I also didn't feel like getting up either. We live in a flat, so it's not like a quick walk downstairs in the house, and the bins are right outside the front door. I've got to put appropriate clothes on to go outside, go in the lift or take the stairs down, leave and walk a bit to the end of the road. About 30 minutes passed and she's shouting at me saying, "After all this time you still haven't gotten up and taken it down." I said I'm lying down. She shouted saying, "I don't care, what me who pays all the bills, should get up and do it, come out my yard with that lotsiness." She's also got this rule aboard dishes being left in the sink after me or her go bed. I do stay up late, genuinely can't sleep most times, but countless times I have stayed up washing dishes at different times around 2 to 4 a.m. Might not be a lot of dishes, might be a lot. She will go bed while there are dishes in the sink. Sometimes I don't wash them and I'll wake up early in the morning to wash them before she's awake.